Hi, my name is Brian Kettleson, and I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft Azure working on the open source team. Today, we're going to talk about Linux infrastructure, cloud native, and DevOps with some of our partners at Microsoft Azure. Many of our customers are operating their mission critical apps on Azure. Infrastructure is the most vital element that ensures the smoothness of their business critical apps. Azure provides us with elasticity and scalability, especially in the era we're living in, where surging online business and remote working have become the new norm. Our partners provide amazing offerings to help you get your infrastructure set up properly with tools to help you operate smoothly in the cloud. Today, we're glad to invite three guests with us, Mishra from HashiCorp, Amy from Elastic, and Ellie from VMware. Let's start with one of the fundamentals, infrastructure. Many of you might have heard of Terraform, which is a tool that helps customers provision services in the cloud using a declarative language. But you might not know that HashiCorp has made many innovations with Microsoft to provide integrations across different Azure services. Mishra, could you share a little bit about HashiCorp and some of the projects that Microsoft and HashiCorp have been working on together for our customers?
So thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. This is really a privilege to be here at Open Azure Day. So my name is Mishra. I'm the technical advisor to the CTO. I work in the Office of CTO on strategic projects and get to collaborate with partners like Microsoft. I get to work on open source and do a bit of advocacy work in open source as well. So a bit about HashiCorp. So HashiCorp is a cloud infrastructure automation company. We build 8 different open source projects in the provisioning, securing, connecting, and running application space. So I'll just name the projects. So we have Vagrant, Packer, Terraform, Console, Vault, Boundary, and Waypoint are our 2 new additions to the HashiCorp family. So people often know, the tools and don't know that there's a company behind it. So HashiCorp was founded in 2012. We have about 1,000 plus employees that help you build and kind of deliver these projects for you. So when it comes to partnership with Microsoft, so HashiCorp and Microsoft had a great partnership. We kind of do all the way from kind of open source collaboration to commercial offerings. So we have a multi-year partnership agreement that has enabled us to kind of deliver things like the Terraform CLI in your Azure's Cloud Shell, which is really amazing. We have a Terraform support for Azure Stack. So for folks that are using Azure Stacks on-prem, you can use Terraform to kind of consistently provision things in the cloud on Azure Stack on-prem. And of course, we have a very kind of vibrant Terraform provider ecosystem, and Azure's one of the providers that allows you to kind of interact with all of the Azure services and create them. So you can go from using Terraform, you can go from like creating Azure VM to a AKS cluster or ACI container group, basically anything that you need that Azure ARM kind of supports. You do that using Terraform. We also have integrations on Vault, so you can kind of use HashiCorp Vault alongside Azure AD, kind of give you that identity in Azure, and then access to Vault credential, access to Vault secrets, things like certificates to API keys. You can access anything that you've stored in Vault using those kind of machine identities or kind of the AD identities that you can get on Azure. And then we also have a managed, service for console that's now generally available. So you can go to the marketplace and look for HashiCorp console managed service that allows you to kind of give you this service networking solution, service mesh for your containers, your VMs that are running in Azure or maybe on-prem, kind of bridge the gap between all of these things and give you this unified way into all of your services in the form of kind of a service registry, and also give you that end-to-end TLS that comes with service-to-service communication using a service mesh that console offers you. So yeah, so all of these integrations kind of help users that are HashiCorp users or Azure users kind of deliver applications day to day, do it in a repeatable, reliable, and kind of a secure way. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of all the things that HashiCorp kind of Microsoft do together.
Which HashiCorp services on Azure enable our customers to do dynamic provisioning? How has dynamic provisioning changed the way people think about infrastructure and their workflow?
So that's a great question, Brian. So I would say, Terraform, Console, and Vault allow users to solve this dynamic provisioning and workflow problem. So, for example, Terraform gives you kind of a unified workflow using infrastructure as code to provision and manage the life cycles of things like VMs, AKS clusters, Cosmos DB, and pretty much anything that you see on Azure, you can kind of manage using Terraform and the Azure Terraform provider. So it kind of gives you the ability to preview these things before you create them. So you kind of get a preview when you make a change, when you add a bunch of instances, one if you remove a database, all of that you can kind of preview using Terraform Plan and then go ahead and apply them. So it kind of gives you that confidence that what you're doing is exactly, what you've seen is exactly what's going to happen when you go ahead and apply those changes. And since this is all just code, you can actually share that in your team. You can share it in your organization. That makes consumption of these modules fairly easily. You can share them in something we call Terraform modules inside your organization. So that makes kind of creating these dynamic workloads fairly easy. Then we have a Console, which is a service mesh solution. So you might have an issue where you have like a few on-prem applications and a few cloud applications running in Azure. So you can kind of connect these things using the Console service. And we have this HashiCorp managed Console service that's running in Azure. So you can just provision it using the marketplace and then kind of connect all of your different workloads to the control plane for Console and get this really unified view into your infrastructure and services. And this helps you, in a consistent way, whether you're running in containers, running your applications in containers, in AKS, or running in VMs, or running a few different things on-prem. You can kind of consistently, mesh these services using the Console service mesh, and then get this like service to service encrypted connection and give you features like L7, like traffic routing and shaping and then things like that. So that really helps with this dynamic workloads where containers and VMs IP addresses can change anytime. You can bring hundreds of VMs online at the same time. You don't need to manually update the service registry. Console is able to do that for you and also health check the applications for you. So when an application goes down, it's removed from the catalog. So when you query for that logical service, you are actually don't see the endpoint or the IP address behind that service if it's unhealthy. So this kind of enables you to play in this really interesting dynamic world, right? And then third, in terms of security, we have Vault, right? So Vault allows you to kind of get these dynamic secrets. So Vault introduces this notion of dynamic secrets. So each secret can have a TTL. So you can kind of authenticate, with Vault using MSI, which is the Microsoft, service identity service. So just use MSI to authenticate with Vault, get a token back from Vault, and then access anything that's inside HashiCorp Vault. So it could be your certificates, your API keys, other secrets. You can get access to all of them. And once the work is done, let's say the container spins down, the application container spins down, or the VM spins down, since these secrets have a TTL, they're automatically revoked. And this really helps with kind of reducing that secret sprawl that we have in our organization. So all of these three things, kind of three projects, help alongside all the Azure services, help you work with dynamic workloads and kind of give you that really try to bring that promise of the cloud to fruition. And so I think this kind of gives you a view of how HashiCorp and Microsoft projects and the kind of services work together.
Thank you so much for that. It's truly amazing to see how we're working together to make the cloud infrastructure more easily accessible with everything automated to reduce your operational efforts. Could you share your perspective for customers when thinking about moving large-scale monolithic applications into the cloud, especially for the ones having large-scale monolithic applications running? How should they prepare their skills and capabilities?
Another great question. Moving to the cloud can be a daunting task for any organization, let alone a large one. But platforms like Azure and tools like HashiCorp, Terraform, Console, Vault help you in a variety of ways and give you solutions to kind of run your applications at scale and migrate them from on-prem to the cloud in kind of a safe and reliable way. So the promise of the cloud is really to kind of give you this unlimited scale, right? So you're able to scale up from one instance of an application to 100 to 1,000 in a matter of seconds just by an API call. And that's really, really powerful. So to kind of make use of the full potential of the cloud, you really want to automate most of your infrastructure workflow. So you want to enable teams to move fast and kind of automate as much as possible. And this at this point, while you're migrating, is a good opportunity to bring in tools like Terraform to kind of unify that infrastructure workflow for you. So you go from a plan phase to apply phase. You can kind of do predictable changes to your infrastructure and kind of do it in a way that's consistent across the organization, across environments like on-prem or the cloud. And I think the third point I kind of want to touch on is that there will be this phase, this period where you'll have a few applications on-prem and you'll have a few applications in the cloud, and you will need a way to kind of bridge them together. And here's where you kind of want to make use of service networking solutions like HashiCorp Console. You can use the HashiCorp Console service on Azure to connect your on-prem services to the services running in the cloud in AKS or VMs, and in a kind of a consistent way, and then get this like really unified catalog of things that are running in your environments. And get things like end-to-end TLS between the environments and so on. So there's different ways of kind of tackling this problem. There's many solutions, many Azure services, many HashiCorp tools you can kind of use in combination alongside each other to have some form of consistency as you migrate your on-prem applications onto the cloud.
Mishra, thank you so much for sharing. It's been great to learn from you today. Now let's talk about application development and hosting. What if we could take care of the services without needing to architect complex infrastructure? Many customers already have a virtualized environment, and we work closely with VMware on enabling customers to run applications in the cloud without the need for complex environmental settings on Azure. Ellie, could you share how VMware offerings save our customers time and effort when they run their apps on Azure?
Great, yes. When we talk to many of our customers, the companies we talk to care a lot about creating business value and not necessarily having to worry about building new platforms or undifferentiated heavy lifting that they would otherwise have had to do. When we look around the open source ecosystem, there's hundreds of projects in CNCF alone. Anything from service meshes, ingress controllers, Kubernetes, build packs, and other projects. Those are all great innovations. Yet most companies end up having to build their own platform from those components. At VMware and VMware Tanzu specifically, we believe in making the lives of developers easier, yet still giving enterprises the controls and governance they need. At VMware Tanzu, we offer a number of products that to serve that need. Our products start with VMware Tanzu application service, a highly configurable, highly opinionated platform used by Fortune 500s. The Tanzu portfolio, which is composed of an opinionated framework for multi-cloud Kubernetes-based workloads, which is now available in Azure, all the way to a managed service built directly into the Azure platform called Azure Spring Cloud. Azure Spring Cloud is a first-party Azure service for Spring and .NET Core applications we've been building with Microsoft over the last year.
What is VMware's take on transforming monolithic applications to cloud-native apps? How has working with Microsoft changed the way how customers can build applications?
While it's important to talk about both monolithic and cloud-native applications, one must ask themselves the question of why do it, right? Fundamentally, legacy and monolithic applications is where most enterprises still make the majority of their money today. Yet, circumstances often necessitate organizations to have agility. Big sporting goods has recently had to innovate rapidly when their stores were shut down because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Their development team was able to innovate by using the right platform and the right cloud provider to be able to build a curbside pickup application within 24 hours. They were able to uh, they were able to innovate on that application by innovating rapidly and reacting to customer feedback on a very short timeline. Tanzu Application Service makes it simple for developers to do what they do best, develop software, while giving operators the ability to operate the platform at scale and with enterprise requirements. With Azure Spring Cloud, we went even further. We build the functionality right into Azure, specifically creating a service that's aimed for lines of business to be able to build Spring and .NET Core applications natively on Azure, integrating into the rest of the Azure ecosystem.
Finally, could you share your perspective for our customers on adopting a platform as a service?
Absolutely. So when we talk to customers, we often hear the question, do we need a platform at all? What we find is companies that ask that question, whether they want it or not, and end up creating their own platform. Their development teams end up going and picking open source projects or otherwise and are creating their own platform. The platform that they end up creating is usually becomes a platform one of one, right? The developers get excited about building the platform, but at the end of the day, by the time that they're done building the platform, it's day one of operating this platform. And those platforms end up running in production for decades at a time. When we talk to customers, they're looking for highly integrated solutions, solutions that are built by companies that specialize in creating platforms, companies that can curate open source and deliver outcomes for organizations without the need to reinvent those platforms time and over again. VMware and Microsoft have been collaborating jointly both on open source and commercially for many years to deliver outcomes for our joint customers. We're excited to continue this collaboration and provide value for our joint customers for years to come.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ellie. It's always great to get your perspective.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
So we've talked about infrastructure and platform as a service. Now let's talk about ways to make your infrastructure and applications more powerful and deliver real-time insights for actionable decisions. We're glad to have Amy from Elastic, the company behind Elasticsearch. Amy, could you share some of the things that Microsoft and Elastic are working on to provide for our customers?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Brian. So Elastic has three solutions: search, observability, and security that really operationalize your data. Enterprise Search, the first of those, allows you to connect disparate data sources like O365 and GitHub and search across all of them in a unified experience. App Search, which is part of the Enterprise Search suite of products, allows you to take your data and build a modern search experience on top of it without having to build anything custom and really understand and tinker with the search domain, which can be quite complex. So the goal of App Search is really to take your data and speed up the time to build your application and your search experience for your customers and allow you to have a search experience right out of the box. So a great example of a customer that has built a search experience on top of Elasticsearch is Jet.com. So for them, a visual search experience was really important for their customers. So Jet.com seamlessly integrated both the textual and visual product information that they have into a single index and allowed their customers to search over it. So second, we're also bringing monitoring and alerting, which is built into our observability solution to allow users to predict, identify, and resolve issues. And then finally, the Kibana integrations that we're building in partnership with Microsoft for the Azure portal and Power BI make applications more powerful with real-time visualized insights.
What is the typical use case for Elastic? And how does Elastic Service augment a customer's capabilities when they're operating their infrastructure and applications on Azure?
Sure. So Elastic is known for speedy and relevant search. And users for a long time have been sending and send their log, metric, and application performance data into Elastic. So being able to search across all of this data, these pillars of observability, as we call them, in one place really makes troubleshooting easier for your infrastructure engineers, your site reliability engineers, and your application developers. We at Elastic really try to think about this concept of mean time to resolution. So mean time to resolution is how long does it take from detecting an issue to resolving that issue, and how can we make that as small as possible? So all of the tools that we've built really seek to make that small without you having to switch, from app to app. All of that is in one place. So Elastic also has a powerful ML engine, a machine learning engine that looks for anomalies in the data and alerts when things don't look right to make that resolution as quick as possible. So the alerting jobs, the ML jobs, a lot of those that come out of the box, they really seek to not require manual intervention and automate a lot of these detections as much as possible. And users can integrate alerting with common systems like Slack and GitHub. And then finally, the dashboards and visualizations that are in Kibana allow users to visualize their infrastructure, their applications, and predict things like potential maintenance because they're capturing all of the metric and performance data in one place.
Could you give our customers some guidance on how to design the right connected service for Azure applications and Elasticsearch?
Sure. A lot of that depends on your use case. And it's important to understand the data sources that you'd like to send to Elastic. So there's a lot of out-of-the-box connectors for different services and even specific modules for Azure integrations that, for example, will pull data from Azure Monitor and send it into Elastic. One great thing about Elastic's connector ecosystem is that it takes the data and conforms it all into one schema and normalizes that data as it comes in so that you can view all of it in one place. And if you have a heterogeneous environment in Azure, if you have Linux machines and Windows machines and different services that are running, Elastic can capture all that data, normalize it, put it in one place so that all of your infrastructure is monitored, all of that log data, that metric data, that uptime data that's coming from the machines, services, microservices that are running are in one place. So building the right data sources and then considering things like VNet design as you scope what you want to be monitored is of utmost importance. And then finally, if you want to accelerate the insights that you're going to get, out of that data, you need to plan how you're going to visualize that data. So again, there's a lot of out-of-the-box dashboards that come along with the ecosystem that Elastic has created. But if there's anything custom, any custom visualizations, dashboards, or canvases that you want to build, that's another important consideration.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's always a pleasure to learn from you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
So we've heard about a lot of great technology today, from infrastructure provisioning with Terraform, leveraging platform as a service with Tanzu Application Service and Spring Cloud for faster application development and offloading the burden of managing your infrastructure, to augmenting your infrastructure and application capabilities with Elasticsearch. Microsoft works closely with different open source ecosystem partners to support you getting the most out of your cloud. Remember to check out the on-demand sessions and the event sweepstakes to see more technical deep dives and win some great prizes. Thank you very much, Mishra, Ellie, and Amy. We look forward to collaborating with you in the future.